WordPress SEO for haters. So this talk comes in two main parts. The first part, I'm just going to really quickly describe what SEO is, maybe a little bit what it isn't. Then I'm going to talk about why there can be a bit of a negative attitude towards SEO within the industry and why I think SEO is actually really important. And in the second half, I'm going to take a really quick look at some of the basics of SEO and how to use those, implement those in your WordPress websites. So my name is Keith. I am a WordPress developer with an interest in SEO. I don't claim to be an SEO expert, more of an enthusiast and advocate more than anything else. So what am I doing giving this talk? Well, we'll get to that. So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. The quote there is from Rand Fishkin. I'll just quickly read it out. It's the practice of increasing the quantity and quality of the traffic that you earn through the organic results in search engines. So traditionally there were kind of two main kind of facets of SEO. There was on-site SEO and off-site SEO. Off-site SEO tended to be things like link building, so getting as many links out in the world back to your website. And on-site stuff deals with kind of content, but also how you structure your website. These days it's a little bit more complex than that, and you've got to consider things like social, which are playing a bigger and bigger role. So I concentrate on the on-site stuff, particularly kind of the technical side of things, not really dealing with off-site SEO at all. So SEO is not to be confused with SEM, which is search engine marketing. As you can see from this definition, it's practically identical, except that SEM deals with paid advertising, which is the key difference. Good SEO is an important part of SEM, but SEO can stand alone from SEM. It doesn't need it. So it's not kind of a mutual thing. So how does SEO make you feel? We've had a few SEO talks here at WordPress London in the past, and judging by some of the reactions to those talks, and also the kind of general sentiment within the industry, it's clear that not everybody has a favourable opinion on it. When the topic of SEO is raised, people often get angry. Sometimes they get confused. Poor Mark. And quite often, I promise those are the last animated GIFs in the talk. I couldn't resist. So why the haters? I think a lot of people think of this guy, someone who will promise the world but delivers very little. We've all seen emails claiming to get you to the top of Google, whatever that means. Or maybe you think of this guy, the self-proclaimed SEO guru, who says he knows everything, but actually his ideas and techniques are about 5 years out of date. So I'm talking about this kind of thing. I found this in my spam folder. That screen's big enough, so hopefully you can read some of it. We've all had emails like this. If you haven't, check your spam folder. There will be loads in there. So according to Andy Seat, if that is his real name, I have no SEO, which is terrible. I don't know what he's all about, but anyway, that's part of the reason for the kind of general negative feeling. Or maybe you think SEO means web copy that looks like this. Now, I'm sure you've come across this kind of thing before. Luckily, you see it less and less. This is a practice known as keyword stuffing. I highly recommend it. No, I'm joking, I don't. This is not a good experience for anybody. And because of these things, SEO is often seen as a bit of a dark art, like as if it's designed to kind of trick and manipulate search engines and users. Many people think that SEO has a negative effect on usability and accessibility, so I guess it's no real surprise that people are skeptical. But SEO doesn't have to be that way, and I would argue that it's actually really important. So you obviously want to ignore those snake oil salesmen and the gurus, but does that mean you should ignore SEO completely? I don't think so. So why is it important? I'll give you one main reason. Anybody use this? called Google. Most of us use it every day. Google has transformed the way we use the internet. Search, but Google in particular, has become almost like a user interface for the web for many people. I often Google for websites even when I know the URL perfectly well. So instead of typing bbc.co.uk/sport, I'll just type in BBC Sport into Google, click, and there. Some people actually even think Google is the internet, I think. Which confuses things even more. So the web is powered by search. It's hard to kind of find exact figures, but some studies show that maybe between 50 and 60% of all web traffic is through organic search. So can any business afford to ignore a channel that big? So here's a typical story. A client comes to you, they spend a whole load of money on a website that they hope is going to get them more business. You go through the process, you maybe hold stakeholder interviews, create some personas, do your UI and UX work, like great wireframes and mock-ups. You build this pixel-perfect website, it looks great, the client's happy, you're happy, everyone's a winner. But fast forward 6 months, and maybe you get an email from the client. This time, they're not so happy. Traffic is low, they aren't getting any sales, or donations, or newsletter sign-ups, whatever they're after. No one is finding the website. So what was the point in all that beautiful typography? What was the point in installing that varnish cache? What was the point in your attention to accessibility standards if no one is using the website? I'd argue that all of that is a bit of a waste of time if you're ignoring the #1 source of traffic. So let me find my cursor. Good SEO as part of a larger marketing effort can make a huge difference to a business. How do I know that? Because I'm one of those businesses that's benefited from great search rankings. My main motivation for this talk is because I'm one of those people, and whenever I see the kind of, it's not really hatred towards SEO, but certainly some indifference towards it, it doesn't sit well with me. So my story, I started my web design journey about 6 or 7 years ago. When I started out, I was looking for clients like any new person is. I ended up on things like job websites, like peopleperhour.com, freelancer.com, things like that. And if anyone's used one of those websites before, they know that the quality of jobs is really low. The competition for those jobs is really high. It's not a happy place. And I thought, I've got to try something else. Maybe search engines are the way forward. Maybe I can find some customers that way. But I couldn't compete with terms like Web Design London or Web Designer London. There was just too much competition in that space already. And at the time, I'd started to focus on WordPress a little bit. So I made a decision and rebranded myself as a WordPress developer and started to put a little bit of work into my SEO to try to rank for that term. That was a game changer for me. With a fairly small amount of effort, I was able to rank highly for key search terms like that one. Also things like freelance WordPress developer or just WordPress developer. Today, I reckon about 90% or more of my new leads comes through organic search, which is huge. No, I'm not saying that's necessarily a brilliant thing. I would love to have more leads through referrals or content marketing or even speaking engagements like this. But it certainly doesn't hurt to have a steady stream of inquiries coming in. Now, I'm not an SEO guru. I just followed some of the basics. Who's on there? Dan. Is Andy White? Is Andy White here? No. I was just going to ask you guys to leave. So I definitely gained an advantage by getting in early on this niche. Whenever I started, there was only a handful of us that were really kind of positioning ourselves as freelance WordPress developers, Dan being one. However, over time, this niche has become more and more saturated. If you're starting out today, it would be difficult, certainly not impossible, to rank for those terms. If I were starting today, I would niche down even further. WordPress has a much bigger market share than it did 6 years ago, and there's plenty of room in the market for more focused businesses. For example, WooCommerce is becoming more and more popular, but there are very few WooCommerce focused businesses in London. As you can see here, so let's take what James Kemp, he does. He has WooCommerce. He doesn't have it in his site title, for example. We'll come to that. But I think if someone decided today that they wanted to be London's WooCommerce developer, there's a massive opportunity there. So go for it. The same goes for things like WordPress membership sites. I think there's lots of niches within WordPress now, and if you're starting out and trying to figure out how to find your way, it could be the way to go. Okay, so we've covered what SEO is, why people might be skeptical, and maybe why it's important. So on to the more technical stuff. We're going to look at some of the basics that if you get right, it could put you ahead of most of your competition. In no particular order, we're going to cover URLs, titles, headings, images, sitemaps, breadcrumbs, and site speed. I could go on, but I had to stop it somewhere. But these are like just some of the main things, and the easy wins, really. So here are two URLs. One of them's good, one of them's bad. I think you'll probably work out which one's which. As you can see, the top one is more readable for a human, but also for search engines. A search engine will know what a page is about if you give it a URL like that. URLs are really important. Luckily, WordPress makes it really easy to have well-structured URLs. First thing to do, go to your permalinks page, which is under the settings menu. My favorite to use is post name, but you can choose one of those other options or choose a custom structure to suit you. You also have individual control over URLs, so on any page post edit screen, just under the title field, you'll see a little edit button there where you can craft your URLs. Now it's best if your title or your URL accurately describes the content of the page. And it's especially important in terms that your users would use, so not necessarily internally to your business, but what people might actually search for. And also that it's consistent with your titles and headings, which we'll come to next. So next up is titles. So by titles, we're talking about the HTML title tag. It looks like that, and it's in the head of your HTML. That's a typical title structure, but you can use any structure you like. Now this is really important for SEO because it's a very, very strong indicator for what a page is about. Titles can be seen in your browser tabs. So if you hovered over that browser tab, you'd see the full title. And also they're seen in search engine results pages. At this point, titles aren't just important for the search engines, but, and this is the theme, also for your users. Because that is where you're describing to your user what your page is about. That is what is going to make them make that decision about whether to click onto your site or not. Sometimes it's worth noting that even if you define a title in a title tag, Google will change it based on the context of your search, so don't get confused if that happens. WordPress themes typically use the WP title function to generate titles. By default, these aren't particularly well optimized. And most SEO plugins will actually take that function and filter it and make it a bit more SEO friendly. A little bit of advice on titles, they should be unique. No two pages on the website should have the same title, and that's actually a bit of a challenge, especially when it comes to things like archive pages. They should be descriptive, they should clearly describe the content of the page, and they should be brief, so that they're easily readable and they don't get cut off on the search engine results pages. So you'll see, yes, the second one down, those next two are being truncated by WordPress or by Google. So you want to keep them under about 70 characters. Again, you also want them to be consistent with your URLs, consistent with your heading. So in HTML there are 6 levels of heading, H1 through H6, and they are used to prioritize and structure content. And this is all pretty obvious to most of you, but I couldn't count the number of times I've seen clients manually, in the WordPress editor, kind of fake titles by using like larger text or a different color or bold text. It's important that you actually use proper titles, or sorry, proper headings, by using this drop down in the WYSIWYG editor. Just use it, structure your content properly. Again, this is going to benefit your users, especially when it comes to accessibility, and it's not going to hurt your search rankings at all. This is another case where good SEO actually improves accessibility. The alt attribute, which stands for alternate text, is displayed when a user can't view an image. So that could be because of a broken source, a slow connection, or if a user is using a screen reader. It also helps search engines determine the content and context of an image. So here's an example. We've got a picture of a bike, and we've got two possible alt alternate text. The top one is spammy. It's keyword stuffing, and it doesn't really describe the image at all. If someone came across that in a screen reader, they would have no idea what they're supposed to be looking at. The second is descriptive and would be useful for both humans and bots. The other reason the top one is wrong is because that's a very expensive bike. Again, using WordPress, we have an advantage because it's pretty easy to set the alternate text. Here I've clicked on an image in the media library, and as you can see there's a field there for alternate text, and if your theme is properly set up, that will now output in your HTML correctly. Next up we've got sitemaps, specifically XML sitemaps. These are pretty much just for search engines, unless someone can tell me otherwise. They provide search engines with information on your site content, the structure, and the frequency of updates. There are plenty of plugins to help with this. I use the trusty Yoast SEO plugin, which creates a sitemap that looks something like this. Once you have a sitemap, make sure you're submitting it to search engines using things like Google Webmaster Tools. Breadcrumbs. These are lists of links that determine the path to a current post or page. So you might be on the gingerbread page, which is underneath desserts, underneath recipes, and so on. They're useful for users to aid in site navigation and kind of determining site structure. But again, what's good for users is also good for SEO. Search engines like breadcrumbs because they help to determine the structure of the site more easily. Again, there's plugins that can help with this. Sometimes your theme might take care of breadcrumbs. So in some cases, you might have to do a little bit of custom development. The speed of your website, so how quickly a page loads, is a massive factor in your search rankings. Website visitors love fast websites, and therefore Google does too. If your web page is more than about 2 megabytes, or takes longer than 2 or 3 seconds to load, then you've got a problem. And I've listed 4 main ways to improve the speed of a website. This could take a whole conference, the amount of content on this topic. But really briefly, good code, so fewer resources being loaded, faster queries, things like that. Optimized images, so serving an image that's actually appropriate to the size on the screen, so not loading a 2,000 pixel wide image when it's actually shown 200 pixels on the screen. And optimizing the images for the web. There's loads of online tools to help you with that. Caching, so browser caching using things like htaccess tricks, server-side caching, and also some hosting will help with the caching. I know WP Engine does. And speaking of hosting, use a good host. That never does any harm at all. So that's some of the technical quick wins. But there's one factor that trumps all of those. There's only one true SEO king, and that's content. There is no better way to help your SEO than regularly producing quality content. If your content is good, people will share it, people will read it, people will link to it, and that's the biggest SEO boost that you can ever have. So in summary, it's important. Don't hate it. And it isn't about tricking search engines, it's about helping them. And it doesn't have to have a negative effect on your website. I would argue the opposite. I would argue the better websites lead to better SEO leads to better websites. Thank you very much.
That's excellent, thank you. Yeah, we've got time for 5 minutes for questions.
Be nice. Yeah.
Keith, I'm really thrilled that you mentioned accessibility so much in that, and also put slay, the main reason for my comment is that slaying the myth that accessibility gets in the way of good SEO, which I've heard more than one person quote to me in the past. And so it's really good to know that actually they go hand in hand, basically, because that's what I try and persuade people, but it doesn't always work out that way, you know.
Yeah, I think like taking a forward-looking approach, Google and the other search engines want to be serving up good websites to their users. So, and accessibility is an important part of the web. It's an important part of building good websites. So they're going to go hand in hand, you know. Eventually, I think that's true with all of these things.
Okay. Okay, I've got another question, but perhaps someone else wants to have a go.
Okay, Lee, no, I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Not really a question, it's more, obviously you can't cover everything in this, you haven't got the time. To kind of new developments in SEO over the last 6 months, maybe a year, are HTTPS and also making sure you're mobile friendly as well. These two elements help the SEO of a site in Google's eyes. So if you've got them nailed down as well.
I definitely should have mentioned mobile friendly sites. Yeah, and there's this really easy way to test that. So Google have just Google for mobile friendly tester, and they just stick in your URL and it'll tell you whether your site passes their test. Should have mentioned that one, Lee. Thank you for bringing that up.
Should have emailed me.
Yeah. Gary.
Just point out the WP title function which you mentioned up there, as of 4.4 is formally deprecated. So if you've got a site with WP debug turned on and you've still got WP title being called, then you'll actually see a notice within your title tag rather than the actual title content. There are ways around that, but the kind of prominent one is to add theme support for title tag for that. My question, not related to that, but my question is, I put this to you earlier, is which aspects of SEO should be handled by a plugin, which should be handled by a theme, and which should be handled by content?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You
could get your heads up.
I know you did. I still don't have a good answer. You could ask that question about most things, couldn't you? And WordPress, accessibility being one as well. I quite like that most of it is handled by plugins. I think that, you could maybe argue for like sitemaps being in core, something like that. I don't know. That's murky. That's murky territory. I tend to rely on the Yoast plugin. I know some people aren't a big fan of me. You're not a big fan of me, no. But it kind of does the job for me, and I know that someone who is involved in the SEO world and keeping up to date is involved in developing that, and I think that's probably a good thing. Good question. WordPress is pretty good out of the box for SEO. It does a lot of things well, like the permalink structures is really important, but it massively depends on your theme, doesn't it, as well? Because some themes are going to get stuff horrendously wrong, but then so are some users. It depends on the user too. I don't have a good answer for that, but I'm quite happy that with the current setup, I think, which is for me using plugins for most of it, and occasionally using the theme. For example, I might custom code my breadcrumbs or custom craft the titles instead of using a plugin for that. But that comes down to kind of personal preference at that point.
I think it's actually very easy to nail down those three elements. The website itself, the content of the website, should be covered, or the content should be covered by the website itself. CSS should be the cleanliness and covered the way it's structured. And use a plugin for something like title tags and descriptions or whatever you like.
Or things like Sitemaps.
We've got time for one more question.
One more question. Who wants to go?
You actually?
Yeah, really, someone just thought of it. Can I go?
Yeah.
I have a client recently who got SEO audit done by someone external. No, they hadn't asked me for SEO. Not a problem. One of the things that they came up with was how valid. They ran the Satra validity thing. the site I'd done for this client came up with 17 errors,
Yep.
and I got it down to 6. And some of the 6 were total core WordPress things.
Yeah.
And then I ran the Guardian's website through the same
Yeah.
checker, and it had 147 errors.
Yeah.
I ran the BBC's one through, and BBC had 25 errors. And I thought, well, okay, I've done my bit, but I wonder, is that a bit of red herring, in your opinion? I don't know.
Have you seen the
Yeah.
markup for Google?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
They still use centre tags. I think it might be in response to
Yeah. I wouldn't put any weight behind validity
Yeah.
or putting websites through those checkers. Not at all.
No.
I could, if anyone knows otherwise, please let me know. But
No,
I
I
pretty
was-
much completely ignore that stuff.
What I would say on that is if somebody's trying to push SEO, that's how they sell it. Oh, your website's not compliant.
Yeah.
So I get that quite a lot of my clients run off a report, someone flogs them a report, and it's rubbish.
That's-
But it's a nice hook for those types of companies to get.
Exactly. And but that's a great response to it, though.
Well, I
It's,
said I think it's 18 down to 6, and
Yeah.
the Guardian has 150, so.
yeah, so you did pretty well.
Well, then
Yeah.
you've shown what the errors are, you'll probably find out it's a YouTube error. They're in
Yeah.
YouTube.
Well,
or
so
Google
one there is-
platform.
Sorry, the WordPress image gallery one uses DLs, and it doesn't put DTs in.
Yeah.
And apparently that's an error.
Excellent, that's really very helpful, thank you.
Thank you.